They fly up to 70 miles one direction to feed. They disperse from this cave. They leave here several hours, sometimes before sunset. They may stay on the wing for 5 hours. Some of it's commuting, some of it's feeding, but by the time 5 hours is up, they're back here during this time of year. They have babies these are all females for the most part. They've given birth in here, so they'll go out and feed for 5 hours. They come back, they nurse their babies. They will go out again for 2 or 3 hours. So over the entire night, they're on the wing for about 8 hours. And during that span of time, they're flying about 20 to 30 miles an hour, you can see that they can fly a considerable distance away from here and still get back within a 5-hour period. Rubble under your feet that's a little unsteady sometimes, but just watch where I walk. And we don't have to walk a long way. It's like walking in snow down there.
The cave is an absolutely amazing place. It's like being on a different planet. You can't breathe the air. The ground is alive with animals. The sky and everything above you is alive with animals. The air is thick with moisture and seems to be very unhealthy things. The sound is unlike any sound I've ever heard before.
I find it incredibly noisy. I think maybe it doesn't bother some people so much, but I mean, there's actually quite a lot of calling that bats make that's, you know, detectable, that's audible. Especially by the young pups on the walls, and you know, it's just a cacophony. I mean, of 7 million bats screaming out for their mothers. You know, it's quite a noise.
You know, when those pups are born, they're pretty large compared to the mother. You know, and they're little pink puffs of flesh. You know, and in a matter of several weeks, you know, while they lose all that and they begin to get skinny, and I forget just how many weeks it takes before they fly, but by that time they've really lost all that fatty stuff, you know.
What's happening is the mothers are lactating and the pups are feeding on the mothers until it's until dusk essentially, when mothers go out to feed and forage for insects, in which case they leave the babies behind. And so at this point you can walk into the cave and there's really nothing but juvenile or infant bat pups hanging on the walls.
I'll get an older baby. You know, I'll just get an older baby here. It's got hair on it. See? Okay. This is a older baby. Got some hair on it. We'll get a back picture and then a belly picture. If you can get an image of that, that'd be great. You got it? Green is cooler though.
No, green is warmer.
Green is warmer than blue. Yeah, okay, I see it, yeah. Okay.
The guano is just sort of like cascading mounds down into it. When you walk into the cave, I wouldn't walk into it in tennis shoes. I'd walk into the cave with boots on. You sink down maybe a few inches, Where it's wet, you can sink down a couple of feet. Yeah, where the guana's, it is uncomfortable where the guana's really wet. I've stepped into wet mounds, not in this cave, but in another cave where I've sunk up over my hip in soggy guano.
The floor of the cave it's very interesting actually. The little pellets that usually form bat guano are not really present because they're pretty much instantly pulverized by the insect population that's you know, metabolizing by, you know, they're beetles and they eat the dung and they eat, you know, what and everything that drops onto the floor, including, you know, live animals, if any, live bats. So it's actually very fine, like powdery dust that you can sink into very quickly. You know, you put your foot down, you can sink up quickly. So you need to wear some big rubber boots not to get messy.
If you look up above your head.
In order to contract anything from a bat, just about the only way you could possibly do that is if you actively picked up a sick bat that was walking on the ground, or a dead bat that had been sick. And so the golden rule is no bat's going to fly down out of the sky like Dracula and latch onto your neck. They just don't do that. It's horror movies only. And the reality is, if you catch a bat on the ground, they shouldn't be on the ground. You should never touch one. You should only look at bats, and just the golden rule is leave bats alone and they'll leave you alone.
What should a kid do? Or it's not until you leave the cave that you really realize what the sound was like, because as soon as you walk out of the cave it becomes absolutely silent and quiet and all you hear are the crickets. And it's a totally different experience.
Digits, but
So what do you think, Zach?
Cool.
So studying bats is really a very liberal and wide-ranging and very fun thing to do.
I was fascinated when I was a Zachary's age there, and I'm just as fascinated today when I see them come out as I was then.